Organizational change. Toys R Us surviving the technology era. Hi, my name is Shelley Cain, and this is my graduate project for Professor Diane Sanchez at Amberton University. Outline. To begin, I will do the introduction to include the hypothesis, literary review, suggestions, methodology, conclusion, implications for the 21st century, recommendations, and references. Introduction. During the current information revolution, can Toys R Us survive their organizational change? The purpose of this study is to show the impact of the informational era and how organizational change can revive Toys R Us. This graduate student believes that due to the information revolution, organizational change can revive Toys R Us. The issue is whether Toys R Us can survive the regulatory changes that the informational revolution brought without losing their entire business. Can organizational change theories help current companies change through the fast-paced technology era that we are currently in? Using organizational change theories when faced with new technological changes will make a business successful in surviving the transition. The theory that will be focused on is Tichy's framework to manage change, then use Lewin's model to diagnose the change. Also, we'll be suggesting that Toys R Us use John Cotter's 1996 leading change 8-stage process when implementing the change. Toys R Us showed what not to do when faced with fast-paced changes and what they could have done with their organization to be successful. Definitions: the information age and Toys R Us. The information age, also known as technology age, is from 1975 to present day. It is a shift from the Industrial Revolution to the information age. In this era, there have been created information and communication technologies. This change puts companies on their toes, making companies have a lot of organizational changes to keep a competitive advantage. Now that we know why companies must change a lot, let's look at the process that they could use to combat these changes. Toys R Us is a worldwide store that has toys, video games, clothes, and baby products. Opened in June 1957 up to present day. The company has been in the toy business for over 65 years. There are roughly 800 stores in the U.S. and multiple stores outside the U.S. before their bankruptcy this year. These numbers have steadily decreased with time. Literary review. Environmental pressures for change and the ecological pressures for Toys R Us organizational change during the compulsion of the informational revolution or technology era are to keep a competitive advantage. The economy, political factors, socio-cultural factors, technology, and shareholders. Revolutionary changes with children moving from blocks to technological smart toys. Some internal pressures for change are stability, organizational structure, mismanagement resources, innovations, and incentives. The nature of the change is moving Toys R Us to be an online store strictly, where they can implement a new product, when organizational structure and new methods of doing the work. The framework of managing change that would be most effective for Toys R Us is Tichy's TPC framework. This helps develop the framework to manage the change. This graduate student would use this open system framework to help map out and strategize the shift, being a clear understanding of how to manage change and which approach would be useful. Literary review continued. The reasons that Toys R Us did not make the change despite environmental pressure is because they did not have the money to put into the change. Toys R Us had bad timing when they filed bankruptcy, and their competition turned up the pressure, gaining the competitive advantage. Their vendors were scared that Toys R Us would not be able to make money back from the toys that they were providing. The bottom line is, Toys R Us did not have the funds. Toys R Us is an international store for baby items, toys, electronic games, and clothes, starting in 1948. Toys R Us opened their first baby furniture store in Washington, D.C. They are in business up to the present day, but have closed more than 200 stores across the United States due to their current bankruptcy. They state to their customers that they should never grow up and play on. As sad as their closing is, it is an essential lesson for everyone that is dealing with the fast-paced change this era has for them. The dot-com era and the rise of the big box store has affected Toys R Us. Toys R Us signed with Amazon to help their push in the technology era. Only Amazon could sell Toys R Us products. But Amazon also sold items that competed with Toys R Us's prices. Taking Amazon to court to get out of the selling contract left Toys R Us lost and more in debt. Walmart and Kmart were huge businesses that sold a more competitive toy. Technology caused children to want electronics as opposed to going into the store. Public buying for shares could have helped Toys R Us bounce back from their debt and could have created a plan to change the organization from actual stores to online. They could have switched to a more technology toy. The type of change that this graduate student is planning is a transformational change. Toys R Us needs this change to keep up with the trends in technology, during which would be helpful in implementing a new organizational strategy. The buildings of Toys R Us are not working, so they need to shift to an online store and increase the fast delivery service to be competitive. Other changes are a shift in the effort to focus a market in marketing and customer service training. For diagnosing change, organizational development areas of action research approach. Going through 3 stages: diagnosing a need for change, introducing an intervention, and evaluating while stabilizing substitutions. This is like Lewin's model: unfreezing, moving, and freezing. Using the action research approach will help solve their problem and look at what the issue actually is. Also, providing an intervention to the point while involving the entire company. This method will show each area that Toys R Us needs to improve in. Literary review continued. Toys R Us will revisit change because they were in business so long that they felt exempt from the risk of the changing toy world. That if it's not broken, why fix Toys R Us's way of doing business, they thought. Lack of knowledge about the current rates of the technology toy demand, but their leadership resisted the change, and now they have to close over 200 stores after 70 years of business. If they moved to an all-online store, there would be resistance because they have lost faith in Toys R Us's business and may not want to chance working through the change. There is the unknown for the people that still work at the few stores that are open for Toys R Us, and they may not have faith in the business. To mitigate resistance to change, this graduate student will consider 3 levels: individual level, large system, and the nature of the opposition to change. Going for more of a productive action to eliminate the resistance to change. If the resistance to change is in the individual level, this graduate student suggests getting people involved that are resisting and talk about their concerns. Also, getting the resistant individuals engaged in the planning process so that they feel involved and aware of the changes. The change process will be better for getting resistant individuals involved, showing that the difference is to create a new beginning for the organization moving to online stores. If the resistance is in the group level, then there needs to be team building, self-directed groups, and intergroups. These groups will help build up a team while assisting them to understand the change and get involved. Also, creating a closure ceremony for the previous action that is being replaced. They may need to move people around in the membership of the group that are resisting. If the resistance to the change is in a more significant system level, then there needs to be a fantastic case for the change that is being made, where this graduate student shows what needs to be done and why, showing the large group that the company is not changing their mind on the change and that they are in it through the shift, that there will be a strategic and effective leadership through the resistance. The approach that we'll be using to implement the change for Toys R Us going to an all online store basis is the John Cotter process, because the difference is large scale and needs to happen quickly for the business to make a recovery. There are 8 stages to the John Cotter process, which you can see on the screen and I will illustrate. They include establishing a sense of urgency, creating a guide coalition, developing a vision and strategy, communicating the change vision, empowering employees for broad-based action, generating short-term wins, consolidating gains, and producing more change, and anchoring new approaches in the business culture. Establishing a sense of urgency as when leaders make it known that there is an existing problem, the problem being solid stores, and they need to move to online stores to survive. Doing this helps to involve the employees in the questions, and they can prepare and could contribute to the idea to fix the problem. In this step, there is a need for change, and making it known helps the whole company work through the problem. Next is creating a grand coalition where a group of people is formed to help tackle the problem at hand. The grand coalition consists of various people from different areas of the organization. Doing this helps get a variety of backgrounds and knowledge to assist when managing this problem. When creating your coalition, it makes motivation through the problem easier, after which there needs to be a vision and strategy created. His re-entering focuses on the company to make a problem more likely to be resolved. After it's done, the vision needs to be communicated throughout the organization, ensuring that the correct information about the view is passed along through every facet of the organization, that everybody is on the same page, all the while making people feel included and a unified front. Then there are empowering employees for broad-based action. This means taking away as many obstacles as possible and releasing people to do their best work on the job. During this step, if there is lashback from a supervisor due to the change, it is best to have an honest conversation to work it out. It is best to generate short-term wins. This means creating small goals for workers to achieve effortlessly. This boosts morale and helps employees drive towards the change that needs to be made. These wins need to plan out carefully and may result in a collective effort towards a common goal. Consolidating wins and gains and producing more change are the next step that helps organizations never give up. Don't let up on the benefit and make more wins. This way, there is always forward movement in the process, and momentum, importantly, momentum is not lost. There will still be resistance to change, but keep the organization focused on the vision. Finally, there are anchoring new approaches in the culture, which is making changes concrete. At the end of this phase, there will be a cultural change where people take on a new norm. Supervision will change because there's a different way of doing things, even though there is a coalition at this step. The entire organization needs to be on board and making the change a routine. Toys R Us change vision statement may read, our vision is to put joy in kids' hearts and smile on parents' faces when they receive our product through our online service. End quote. If Toys R Us survives the compulsion of the Toys R Us era, this vision would be sufficient in showing what changes they made. This graduate student would communicate the organizational change by letting the organization know that the difference is going to happen eventually, informing that evolution occurs in phases and may not be overwhelming with the thought of it all happening at once. Telling the organization that the change needs to happen quickly to gain a competitive advantage and cover the business before all is lost for Toys R Us. Finally, showing what the industry would look like once the change has occurred and communicating the positive shifts, showing their idea. When communicating the change, a strategy used is the Gardner's 1995 visionary leader. This type of leader creates a brand new story for the organization and showing the need for a new movement. This is important for Toys R Us to create a new movement, a new change. The action is to push for an online basis to adapt to today's demands. The other strategies used in the phase of organizational change are the pre-launch phase, the launch phase, and the post-launch phase. During the pre-launch phase, self-awareness, motives and values for communicating the change. Also, figure out why there's a need for change, creating a clear vision and direction. And find out what competition the external environment has. During the launch phase, first, there needs to be communication of why there's a need for change. Putting into motion the critical activities are necessary to complete the transition, and most importantly, dealing with resistance at all levels during this change. Lastly, there's the post-launch phase, where there is a need to work through the multiple sources for leverage in the company. Knowing that there is resistance coming and taking the lashback from that, leaders must be consistent, persistent, and reiterate the message to keep the change happening. When communicating the need for maintaining the difference, there is always things that occur due to communication, but learning that there are still unexpected consequences and to deal with them accordingly. There needs to be communication, keeps moving forward through the change, and choose people that are on board with the difference. Finally, send out a new initiative. The type of media that will be utilized to communicate will be electronic media, because this is the most popular way to reach people and for the future in the 21st century. For example, there are emails, videos, social media platforms, or video conferencing. Essential skills to have when communicating the change is the listening ability. I repeat, listening ability. Painting a picture for the listener, selling the idea of the change, and handling the resistance, your communication through shielding the rest of the organization. The actions to sustain the change include keeping the difference moving, choosing your wins, dealing with the problem as they come up from the switch, creating and giving innovative initiatives. It is crucial to implement those actions while sustaining change because it will lead to successful execution and support of the change. It is one thing to implement a difference. It is another to have a change integrated into an organizational culture. Evidence. The relevance of companies going from actual stores to online stores is due to customer behavior. Take a second and look at the pie chart. It shows that roughly 8 to 10 Americans are online shoppers. 15% buy online on a weekly basis, and these numbers are growing. Companies are having problems with filling online customer demand orders effectively and on time because of the surge of people wanting to shop online. In 2014, delivery became a part of the scale, increasing the competition to get the product there fast and with little to no damage to the product. The future for the 21st century are the adolescents. Adolescents are being influenced to shop online due to watching their elders do it. Han Jian-Yu showed this by conducting an online survey that showed 2,419 adolescents plan to purchase online out of her study. The adolescents in this study were more focused on price, value, brand, and quality as opposed to fashion and shopping experience and going into the actual store, showing that adolescents are influenced to purchase online for the future. Moving to online stores impacts global business for the 21st century. The online impact includes for the Americas, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Europe, in the whole world, food delivery online made up about 8 billion euros, increasing every 5 years, 3.5%. In 2014, over 46% of shoppers in Europe bought products online, equaling about 424 billion euros. This number of shoppers online is growing in this generation and future generations. Online shopping for the 21st century for Toys R Us will have a stronger connection between market and operations. The impact that online shopping has on Toys R Us is growing, forcing companies to rethink their shopping strategy. Limitations. These include not as much current information due to this being a new topic with Toys R Us just closing stores. Future information regarding how many people use online shopping may vary, also in the future. Methodology. During the study, John Cutter's 8-stage process was followed. Located relevant studies through various peer review sources online while using reference material online. Conclusion and implications. This includes for the 21st century. Toys R Us could recover if they move from actual stores to just online, liquidating their products, counting their losses, and putting all the effort towards online. Can organizational change theories help current businesses change through the fast-paced technology era that we are currently in? Using organizational change theories when faced with new technological changes will make a business successful in surviving the change. During the current information revolution, can Toys R Us survive the organizational change? The purpose of this study was to show the impact of the organizational era and the organizational change that could revive Toys R Us. This graduate student believes that due to the information revolution, organizational change and theories can revive Toys R Us if done correctly. The issue is whether Toys R Us can survive the organizational change that the information revolution brought without losing their entire business. Time is of the essence here. Some implications of moving from an online store are that there needs to be significant changes to an organizational structure. Going from stores you can walk into to online stores. Different needs come with different businesses online. If done right, a company can make the transition. But if done wrong, you can end up like Toys R Us in the unknown. The 21st century workforce needs to change their way of developing employee relationships. Going from a more face-to-face interaction to online communications requires different skill sets. There needs to be more development of skills in fast changes when it comes to the pace of technology. The outcomes of online shopping is that shopping is more rapid, greater availability of products, lower prices, and access to multiple products accessed with a touch of a mouse online. The consequences are that companies cannot keep up with online convenience and that there are long wait times for returning items because a shopper must ship the item back instead of bringing it to an actual store, which takes jumping into your car and driving to the store as opposed to waiting weeks for a return. Due to the convenience of online shopping trends to impulse buy, purchasing things that are not in their budget, it seems for the future the direction that stores are going is to move to an online purchasing, implying that there is a loss of jobs at the stores and that there needs to be a more technology savvy person working in the future companies. Following this presentation, there will be a 10-minute question and answer session with Dr. Diane Sanchez. Recommendations for today's workforce. Some proposals this graduate student would make based on the above research for today's workforce is to follow the planning process model of organizational change. It is vital to counteract some of the challenges with the challenging and changing world today by making decisions fast and supporting the organizational change model. This may work for now, but remember that the world is ever changing. So what may work now may not work forever, as seen with Toys R Us's downfall. Suggesting that organizations read and take into consideration Connie Giersick's 1991 revolutionary change theory idea. Organizations can benefit from John Kotter's process by following the process and not losing momentum. Kotter's process fits most organizational structures, so it is straightforward to use. An organization can have better communication because of John Kotter's process. There's always communication happening at every level of a business. It can also create a camaraderie among the same jobs that are going through the change. This process creates a sense of urgency so that an organization does not fall too far behind in making the change happen. It's a great process for helping everyone be on the same page before, during, and after the change is implemented. Thank you for taking the time to view my presentation. If there are any questions, please reach me at the email provided on the screen.